Do you happen to enjoy the fantasy genre, but you're also a weeb? Then the anime Frieren will be to your liking. As I'm recording this video, the anime is still running and it's already one of the most popular ones out there. This show is not about a loser boy who somehow gets all the underage girls or about a hero who has to defeat all evil, but it's about what happens after the evil has been defeated. And it's also about a 1000-year-old elf with a midlife crisis. Now, one of the characters we come across in the story is a guy named Stark. Stark wields an axe of questionable size, and in this video that's exactly what I will be making. Now, as always, everything starts with a pattern, and I want this one to be really accurate. So, I taped together some paper, grabbed my best marker and I made some drawings till it kinda looked good. I transferred these big brain patterns to 10mm high density foam 3 times to glue those together later. However, the sheet that goes in the middle will need some fiberglass rods. These will make the axe head connect to the stick, but it will also make the axe super sturdy. The bigger or longer your prop, the more it's prone to being floppy. So, I mark where I want them to go and glue all the pieces on top of each other with the rods sandwiched in there. Since these are some big sheets, chances are they don't align perfectly, so I'll clean that up using a belt sander. A Dremel would work too, by the way, but a belt sander is just quicker. Now in the reference we see this weird shaped rod in the middle. So I stack some foam pieces on top of each other to recreate that, but leave some room in the middle to fix the axe later, since I'm making this separately. I also leave one side open, but I'll glue that together later. Like most pieces in the axe, this piece is pretty round, so I once again use a belt sander to shape it. This is gonna be a belt sander video. Do you need a belt sander to make this? No, but is it handy? Yes. Ah, look, it looks a bit like a eggplant. And then we have the base of the axe, and as you can see, it's a pretty big boy. This thing right here doesn't look like a dick anymore, which is great. And next up we can move on to creating some edges, because it's an axe, it's not a hammer. Before I can start edging, I have to make some markings. These will help me as a guide. I first tried using a belt sander, but I quickly learned that I need some precision for this, so I switched to using a Dremel. The edges you see on the blade also pop out a bit, so I decided to add some 2mm UHD-foam. Then I can just sand it again. 1mm would have been better maybe, but CosplayShop doesn't have that. Yet. That's right, baby, you heard it here first. 1mm foam coming to CosplayShop very soon. Alright, I'm gonna be a bit honest here. This looks a bit messy, because the ultra high density foam has a different color than the high density foam, and at some places I sanded a bit too much. You can see the high density foam coming through, and that just looks messy. But the good thing is when I go over it with my finger, it feels smooth, and that's what's important, because once I will start painting, you won't see that anymore. It will be all the same color. However, just to be sure, I am gonna add some kwik on there at the end of the build. With that said, let's just move on to the details. I start off by adding some 2mm UHD foam to add some height to the rod. Next up is the point that goes on top of it. I just cut some circles using this cos tool and stacked those on top of each other once again. Then I made some markings and did some sanding on the belt sander and with a Dremel. I also put a half round dowel around 2 circles to glue it underneath. There's also a pointing that goes on top. Now there are many ways to make a point. You could make patterns and then just glue it, you could 3D print it or just sand it. And I'm gonna make a point with this big dowel. Of course it's a bit too small to just use on a belt sander, you can't really hold it. So I put a fiberglass rod in it so that I can rotate it. This works, but it's rather slow and it makes my hands eepy. So I need a more creative solution. It's not stupid if it works. I make a hole with Dremel and insert a small fiberglass speed for extra sturdiness. I do the same to attach the whole thing to the axe itself. Now it's time to work on the staff. This is a pretty basic and repetitive procedure. Some parts I covered in 2mm black foam since they pop out, And then I covered them with some half-round dowels. I'm so glad these exist, imagine having to Dremel all that. On the very bottom I added some stacked pieces of UHD-foam. Now I could just glue this on as is, but I decided to Dremel some holes in it so that I can add a rod once again. I use this technique a lot in this axe, but this way there's more surface that's glued together and it can just fall off. With all those parts done, it's finally time to glue the top part to the staff. You know, we made a big thing when I have to stand up and we have to move the camera a bit back, but the foam build is finished and it's pretty sturdy, which is important because the first thing you do once you made a big thing is swing it around, of course. Now I would love to move on to the paint part, but I can't just yet because I have some cleaning up to do. Why? Because there's just a lot of seams here. We cover the PVC pipe with foam, that causes a seam. We have some dowels on top of the foam, those are seams as well. But we have to get rid of those, because if we don't, you'll just see them long after it's painted, and that just sucks. Now here's the cool thing with foam, it's lightweight. You don't have that with metal. If this axe was made out of metal, as I assume it is in the anime, I would not be able to hold it like this. I don't think I would be able to hold it at all, actually. I once again will be using the black cospaint to prime the whole axe with. This is a paint and a primer in one, works perfectly on foam. And since most of the axe is black and steel colored, this is perfect. I gave it around 3 layers in total and used a hairdryer to speed it up. However, once again this made my hands eepy, so I decided to work smart and not hard. Once I was done with priming, I covered the parts that need to stay black with paper and used A-stand steel color mixed with chrome to airbrush the whole thing. Then I removed the tape and painted the parts that were already black with some Panther black metallic cospaint to make it shine just a bit more. I did some shading / weathering on the deepest points with Panther black as well. Then we come to the highlights, and I used some pearly white cospaint for this. I just applied it to the edges and dry brushed it to the parts that were sticking out. Now it might feel like I'm not doing anything at all, but this will create a lot of depth to the overall look. Or so I hope. And then to finish it off, I once again used the satin lukas spray to seal the whole thing. Not only does it seal it, but it also makes it shine a bit more and it complements the paint job really well. Now this is a bit awkward, but I actually forgot to do something important. Normally this axe should have some bolts all over it, 20 in total. And I should have made those before I started painting it, and I didn't. So I just quickly made some from a foam dowel and I'm gonna glue those on. You and I can just forget this ever happened. And with that, it's finally finished. And I'm pretty happy with it because I made this whole thing in like 4 or 5 days. By the way, we would like to thank our very first patron, Cosplay, because that's right, we started a Patreon. So if you want to support this YouTube channel even more, you can do so over there, link is in the description. Anyway, that's it for me. Go watch Frieren, it's a very good anime. I'm Skyshock and I will see you in the next one.